Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Liftoff. Today, I'm joined by Liza Borches from Carter Myers Automotive. I'm going to turn the mic over to her. She's an awesome CEO who is just CEO of a local automotive group, started out of Petersburg. And today, we're having her on to talk about a little bit of the community, the philanthropic efforts that they're doing, and also some of the impacts that tariffs have had in the economy. Liza, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
I am so happy to be here and honored to be with you. Share a little bit about CMA and hopefully shed some light on some stuff going on in automotive that can help everybody out there.
Absolutely. That would be great. If you would just give like a brief overview, because I think when people hear CMA, I know a lot of people have passed it on 95, but a lot of people don't know exactly how big the company is.
Yeah.
And I think what we see off 95 is really the tip of the iceberg. So if you could just kind of share just a brief overview of you, if you
Sure.
would, that would be great.
So we started, as you said, in Petersburg. We were a single point Ford dealership back in 1924 and slowly started moving into the Richmond market when we moved our Honda and Hyundai store. So CMA's Colonial Honda and Hyundai that you see on 95 when you drive by there. But we now are 24 rooftops, different dealerships across Virginia. So Williamsburg, Richmond, Charlottesville, Stanton, Lynchburg, Winchester. We're in West Virginia in Martinsburg with a couple of dealerships there, and we're just south of Richmond down in Rocky Mount, North Carolina with a Toyota dealership. And we'll soon be in Maryland, actually opening our fifth Honda store up in Maryland early next year.
Wow. Exciting times, opening the 25th. And you said how many years have you been in business?
So this is our 101st year. We got to celebrate 100 years last year and really reflect on our history and kind of what does it take to keep a business alive for 100 years.
Yeah.
And I got to learn a whole lot of stories and really things that I maybe wouldn't have known otherwise. We helped my dad. My dad wrote a book last year about the first 100 years of CMA.
Wow. What's the book called? Go ahead and plug it.
The book is called Drive, 100 Years of Passion, People, and Progress.
Awesome. Drive. Awesome. And again, this is a family business, so it's passed down from generation to generation. I want to hear, how does that baton get passed, and what does that look like? What does the pressure feel like as the title of CEO gets placed on kind of, how does that
they
work?
say pressure is a privilege, right? And I feel extremely
That's good.
privileged and extremely honored to be able to be the fourth generation of my family to lead Carter Myers Automotive. And I think the transition of each generation was very different. If you look back, my great grandfather who started the company, it got transitioned to my grandfather because my great grandfather had a heart attack at a very young age. You know, we think that the pressure of the Depression and the world wars going on caused him to have a heart attack early. My grandfather took over at the age of 26. He was in a training program with General Electric and took a leave of absence, came back to run the company. And he joked when he was 75 and retiring that he was going to go back to General Electric since he was still technically on a leave of absence. And so then he transitioned to my dad about the time when he was 75, he technically retired. My dad took over. And my dad said, apparently the statistic is that most of the times it's the third generation that screws up when the company doesn't make it past. And so my dad said his job was to carefully carry the company from the second generation to the fourth without messing up. And he added so much to our company. And I officially took over, I think it was about 14 years ago. And only 3% of companies make it to a fourth generation. So we did a little research last year. There are about 1,000 companies in the United States that are 100 years old.
I was just about to ask, what's the number?
Yeah, they're not that many. I would have thought there were more.
1,000. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, we're a young country, but that's very impressive that you've made it to 101 years.
Yes, but it's only about how good we are now. We can't, rest on our laurels saying we've been in business 100 years, come do business with us. It's what we're doing for people now and what the vision is going forward so that our current associates have a really good future ahead of them too.
Absolutely. And speaking of what you're doing for people now, I know you guys are very involved in the community. That's actually how I was able to connect with you guys and just even be here speaking to you today. But if you would, just talk a little bit about what you guys do and as far as community involvement.
Yeah. There's so much. What we really try to do is allow each of our markets to be responsive to the needs of their particular community. Since we're around 3 states, we don't want to dictate from, let's say, me in Charlottesville saying what our Richmond market should be giving back to. So we have a philanthropy committee, and we have associates who are all owners of our company, sit on that philanthropy committee from every single community that we do business in. And so they're always out there understanding what the needs of that community are, talking to nonprofits, sitting on boards, getting involved, bringing those ideas back to our philanthropy committee, and it really inspiring each other with new ideas on ways that we can give back and make a greater impact. In Richmond, we have a couple of folks who are super passionate about philanthropy, Keith Black and Jenny Lockett in particular, Valerie Gerbezo. And right now we're about to launch our third quarter philanthropy event, which is really about supporting families who have children going through cancer. And one of the things that we learned years ago was that transportation is actually one of the greatest challenges for families when they have a sick child, getting them to and from their treatments while the parent still probably needs to work, the cost of transportation. If you aren't near a local children's hospital, that can really be an added challenge that you don't need in a tough time. So during the month of September, we focus on raising money to support families. The Ask Foundation is one of our great partners here in the Richmond market. And then in the fourth quarter, we do a huge bike drive. People who many of us might remember getting our first bike.
Yeah.
It's a very special Christmas gift. We think it's a child's first piece of transportation. It gives them freedom to go visit their friends, maybe bike to school, bike to the local, playground. And so last year, we donated over 1,200 bikes and helmets to our different communities, to kids, through local nonprofits. And so we'll be kicking off that initiative here in really just a little over a month, starting in the fourth quarter.
That is so exciting. It's so cool to see the rich history, and then also when you guys come full circle and just giving back to the community so richly. It's amazing. We're blessed to have you in the community, and we appreciate all that you're doing.
Well, if you all go follow Keith and Jenny and Valerie on our Facebook pages, you will see that they are out there every week in some different capacity, volunteering and serving our community. And it makes me so proud, because it's not me as the CEO saying, here's what we're going to do, and here's where we're going to go give money. It's our teams feeling that passion and owning it, and getting to know and really partner with people in their community.
I'll shout out. I mean, that's what I saw Keith doing. That's how we met. Great guy. Yeah. He's always looking for just ways they can be of service, and it's needed.
Yeah.
You guys are doing great. The other thing I wanted to chat about was current challenges. Tariffs being number one at the front. So this is kind of switching gears from the happy note to a little bit more of a little more of a threat, or it could be an opportunity to the automotive industry is tariffs. I've talked with a lot of local dealers about this, but yet to be in front of a dealer group your size, so to speak. So what have you guys seen as far as the challenges that have arisen from tariffs, and how are you guys handling them?
So the talk of tariffs really started impacting our business back in March. There was this discussion that early April tariffs were going into place, and we saw a lot of business get pulled ahead. Customers who were planning on buying a car rushed into our dealerships in March. We saw a little bit of a surge. And then April came, and we called it the tariff tornado in our company. We're like, where's the tornado going to go? How strong is it going to be? And really, it never quite became a tornado. There's just been a lot of talk about tariffs, but things kept getting pushed back. The rules kept changing. The numbers kept changing. And who it really created a lot of chaos for were our manufacturers. It was very difficult for them to communicate clearly how tariffs were going to impact the pricing of our new vehicles so that customers could appropriately plan their purchases. Thankfully, in the last month or so, we've seen that calm down. There's now more clarity on what countries are going to have what tariffs, and each one of our manufacturers seems to be handling it a little bit differently. Some of our manufacturers are having some slight price increases. Some are putting, an import fee so that we can see exactly what that tariff is, so that if tariffs ever got lifted or changed, it could come back off. And then a lot of the manufacturers, honestly, are still absorbing themselves the expense that the tariffs are adding to the product. That can't happen forever, but I do see our manufacturers saying we want to keep our vehicles as affordable as possible for as long as we possibly can. So I have a lot of respect for our manufacturers who are simply saying we're going to take care of these tariffs for as long as we can so our consumers can still afford our vehicles. So the good news for consumers out there is There are some modest price increases happening, but when we thought back in March, when people were calling me saying, oh my gosh, is every car going up 25%?
Yeah.
Of course, that's not happening. So we're working really hard to make sure that we are bringing clarity to our consumers, because every manufacturer is different. We can say, here's how this one's handling it. Here's how this one's handling it. And give them some guidance on which vehicles might be more affected than others. So I'll give you one just quick example.
Yes, please.
Subaru. The way that they've handled it is they shifted some production so that all Forester and Crosstrek production is now in the U.S. and not tariff affected. Okay. Those are their two highest volume products, and they said we want to make sure that we don't have to do price increases on these vehicles for consumers. And they shifted some other production back to Japan that wouldn't impact our consumers quite as much. They also asked that dealers participate. So we're paying part of that tariff fee on every single car, every single Subaru that we sell. So it's a partnership. They're absorbing some, we're absorbing some, and then some of their models, they've got a little bit of price increase for the consumer. So I think they've approached it in a smart way. And the key is we want new cars to continue to be affordable and making sure that they do not get out of reach for the average American.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially with my next point is interest rates. With interest rates going up, it does feel like every dollar is infinitely compounded when the price goes up. So as far as interest rates go, how are you guys battling that front?
You know, interest rates were something that slowly moved up, and so it wasn't felt as hard. We kind of, took our time. But if you purchased a car 5 years ago and are purchasing the car now, the interest rate is significantly different. It's not something that we can necessarily control at a high level, but what we do is we are always looking at the lenders that we offer at CMA dealerships to make sure we can get the most competitive rate for every customer. We have 45 different lenders that we work with, and depending on each customer's individual situation, we try to look out there and say, okay, which lender is going to make sure that we give them the most competitive rate. So the good news is that lenders are competing for consumers' business. So even though rates are up, they still have reason to make sure that they are offering the best that they can for our consumers. There are also a lot of other creative ways that consumers can buy cars. I mean, leasing is a really great option that too many consumers in Virginia don't take advantage of. We've seen an increase in leasing because of electric vehicles and being able to take advantage of the tax credit in a lease when they couldn't in a purchase. So I think that's gotten consumers a little bit more used to leasing than where we were years ago in Virginia. So we're seeing consumers somewhat switch to leasing because you can get a lower payment for the same car. And really, in my opinion, it's the best way to buy a car, because 3 years from now, you'll be able to make a decision. Do I want to keep that car and buy out my lease, or do I want to turn it in because the technology has improved so much in the last 3 years that I want to go ahead and turn this in and get something new? So we'd always be happy to answer questions because it is a confusing topic.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And you kind of skipped into my next question, which is advice to the audience on just how to navigate buying a car right now, which you kind of answered with the lease question. But if you have any other tips or tricks, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, one great piece of news for consumers is that used car values continue to increase. And so that trade-in that they would be replacing, with values going up, that's going to offset, if there was any sort of price increase on the new car, it could offset some of that additional payment due to interest rates. So used car values being strong is really good news for the consumer. I guess my advice would be ask a lot of questions, understand how each manufacturer is moving forward, whether it be with tariffs, with lease specials, with special interest rates. There are quite a few new car manufacturers that have 0% or very low interest rates being offered. So seek those out. That would be a much even bigger benefit now than it would have been 5 years ago when rates were at 2 and 3%. So there are some good opportunities for consumers to take advantage of right now. Ask good questions. Ours and other dealer groups, we have sales associates who are professionals whose job it is to know all of those options for them. And we look forward to being able to answer questions, whether it's in person or they can send a chat or an email in, whatever the best way that they'd like to get their questions answered.
Absolutely. With the different used cars holding their value, is there a particular brand? I don't know if you're allowed to comment on it. If you're not, that's fine. Is there a particular brand that you found has held value more so than others?
I don't think that that's an easy question to answer. I think part of our job, we do represent every single brand.
Right.
And resale value is an important piece, but it's not the only thing for a consumer to consider. We want to always make sure that we're finding the right fit for their family, the right payment, the right structure for purchasing that vehicle. Resale value certainly comes into account. But I think there's so many internet sites that you can do your research on to understand used cars, and what might be holding the best value now may not be the same in a couple of years.
Yeah, agreed. I appreciate you coming on today. I've got like one more fun question for
Sure.
you. So obviously being a CEO, being a leader of a big company, what books do you look to get advice from that you would recommend? We talked about Drive earlier on.
Yeah.
But are there others that you have found have helped you?
So I read so much. If you talk to my team, they probably get tired of me saying, have you read this book or have you listened to this podcast? I'm constantly consuming content. And actually, the book that I'm reading right now is The AI-Driven Leader. And really understanding how, as a leader, we can have a strategy that encompasses AI, but also aligns with the value and the vision of our company.
Yeah.
I think people are getting really excited about AI right now, and sometimes jumping in a way that just to use AI versus making sure it is solving a problem, it is creating an efficiency, and is it a part of the company strategy. So that's a book I'm reading right now. I love to read books about other leaders.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say her name because I will say it wrong, but there was a female leader who was originally born in India who led Pepsi company for quite a few years. I just read her book and took a lot of leadership lessons from it. And
Yeah.
some of the things that she changed at Pepsi to align purpose and passion with their performance. I thought that was a great book. And then I read a lot of the normal leadership books that everybody is recommending. The Power of Habit. I read a lot of John Maxwell books.
Yeah. Those are
And
great.
then I drive a lot to all of our dealerships around 3 states. And so
audiobooks.
podcasts and audiobooks are my best friend.
Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing. I'm going to check out some of those books.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Is there anything else that you feel like we didn't touch on that maybe you'd like to shoot a quick note out on or say something on?
Well, one of the things we were talking about offline that I think is fun, and when we talk about leading a company and how you take a company for 100 years, I think you have to have energy and you have to have passion. And one of the ways that we work really hard at CMA around energy is creating overall well-being for our associates. So you and I were talking about running, and that's what I
Yeah.
do every morning, 5 a.m. That's my go-to way to start the day.
That's awesome.
And just taking care of our associates and helping them also understand the importance of physical well-being and how that creates energy in your day. So we try to do more than just talk about selling and servicing cars at CMA. It's about how are we moving lives forward for our customers, for our associates, and for our community.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's impressive just to see how fourth generation and it's still going well. And it's you're built to be a leader. This didn't just fall in your lap. This came to you because you're a leader, and that's transparent through just us talking. So I really appreciate you coming on today.
Well, we love this community and are always looking for new ways to connect. So it was great to be with you.
Sounds good.